Hello and welcome into the Stretch 5 podcast, coming to you live from the Spacious spare bedroom apartment studios. I'm Brad Sturgeon, and joining me today as always is the co-host of Stretch 5, Brian McCullough.
Good to be back. What's up, Brad?
Not too much, man. Sitting in with us as well is our quality control and NBA outsider insider, Marie Rush.
Hi.
Hi. Reach us on Twitter at Stretch5Pod or by email at stretch5podcast@gmail.com. Jumping right into it, we're at the end of the first round of the NBA playoffs. We've got a whole bunch of stuff to talk about there with some series that have completed, series that are still going on, and the beginning, today, right now, as we're recording this, of the second round is underway between the Spurs and OKC. Sounds like the Spurs are taking it to the Thunder to begin the second round.
Yeah, right now the Spurs are putting a whooping on OKC. At the end of one, it's 43-20. Everybody thought this was going to be a competitive matchup, so hopefully OKC turns it around and gets into the game.
I mean, hopefully, but I really think that as of now, with the way Curry's been, the Spurs have to be looked at as the overwhelming favorite to win the title. We've also got a number of other things to talk about. We had a team that almost collapsed. We've got a couple teams that weren't very impressive in the first rounds despite winning their series. A whole slew of injuries in the NBA world through the first round. And much, much more. So what do you guys got to start out with? What'd you see? What do you like? What happened in the first week, in the first round that you really enjoyed watching?
Well, I mean, we had a couple series end the way that we thought it would. The Cavs, they handled business. They swept the Pistons, even though they gave them a good battle. You had the Spurs move on, get rid of the Grizzlies, who really had no shot of winning a game. And then you had, the Warriors handling the Rockets back at home in Game 5.
With two hands tied behind their back and one of their feet twisted, and Draymond Green slamming people into the ground. Yeah, that was.
Yeah, but that Rockets performance was pretty horrendous. They didn't even show up.
If you weren't named, if your last name wasn't Harden, then you really didn't do anything. At the beginning, middle, or into that series, it was pretty pitiful from start to finish. We've also got a new coach that just got hired on in the last couple days. Luke Walton goes from Golden State to the Lakers. He, of course, was a former player for the Lakers, maybe one of the top 25 worst players in Lakers history, and that's saying a lot from a storied franchise with many years full of rosters with bad players. So
yeah, he might have been a bad player for him, but he's got some rings for him too.
If he
did he have anything to do with the rings, or
hey, he was on the team.
He was on a roster. Yeah, he's got rings.
And earned a ring.
He's actually, believe it or not, he's one of these guys.
Earned him a ring.
He's one of these guys, one of these happy-go-lucky dudes who has a ring as a coach, or not happy-go-lucky. One of the rare era of someone who's got a ring as both a player and as a coach. I wonder, though, if he actually is really successful as a head coach and goes on to do Zen Master-like things, wins a couple titles for the Lakers, and cements his place as one of the great coaches, does he get a statue of himself on the bench, like as a player?
As a player?
Or does he get one, like, as a coach? Like,
it's got to be as a coach.
Yeah, it's got to be as a coach. Why would he want to have it as a player?
Because he's Luke Walton. And if you've followed the man at all, if you know his dad, that's reason enough for him to do something crazy. So,
well, first of all, I think we're getting way ahead of the curve because this Lakers team is horrible that he's taken over. So,
second of all, they got to get through the Warriors, which he was coaching until just to get to that title, and I don't think that's ever going to happen. So, I could be proven wrong, as I have been before, and recently have been in trying to predict the outcome of one of the series in this first round of the NBA playoffs. I really thought that the Heat were going to smash Charlotte. I thought after they were up 2-0 that the series was over. Wade was just going to take over. Whiteside was going to be dunking in Bismack Biyombo's face. Frank Kaminsky was going to go hide under the bench, and their coach was going to run away.
I really thought after you totally jinxed his team, Brian was going to beat you down in the parking lot. That's what I thought was going to happen.
There was a threat of physical violence, that's true, but
almost came to blows, man.
There were 4 games in between the last time we recorded and tonight. It's possible, it was possible, and it almost at some points during that Game 6 performance looked like it could be the case that we would have had the Heat being swept in 4 of the 6 games in between recording. And so my fingers were crossed, my fingers, toes, and everything else, because I would hate to be that guy who ended up getting my good friend and co-host's favorite team swept out of the playoffs. That would be terrible.
And like we said at the start of these playoffs, having a superstar on your team is what you need in these moments. When your team is down, facing elimination, you have a guy like D. Wade step up and bring one home for his team.
Or Frank Kaminsky.
No. Get that garbage out of here.
I mean,
Poor Frank the Tank.
no, poor Frank the Tank. You know what? He knocked Kentucky out when they were 38-0. I got nothing. He's the only person. He is part of the only team I dislike more than I dislike all Atlanta teams, basically, except for the Braves. But it's been a pretty good playoffs, honestly. After the first couple of games, after that first weekend when it kind of stunk, when everybody was getting blown out, we had a number of series which sort of went back and forth. A lot of home game stands through these 7-game series. The Celtics and the Falcons, Celtics and the Hawks. Thank you. Were a homestand series up until the end. You had, of course, Golden State winning at Houston. You had the Cleveland Cavaliers winning at Detroit, Portland Trailblazers, and the Clippers. That was a series I was trying to think of. Went back and forth. You never really knew who had the upper hand until the end.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what makes it great to watch, seeing those teams battle it out. Of course, with that Clippers and Portland series, you have, CP3 and Blake Griffin going down. So you kind of knew that the momentum was going to switch over to the Blazers after the Clippers lose their top 2 players. But overall, I mean, it's been a good playoffs. Teams have been competitive. We have 2 Game 7s, going on tomorrow. So, and I actually read a stat the other day that last year there was only 2 Game 7 playoff games the entire season, the entire playoffs.
Right? Mm-hmm. That's hard to believe, actually.
And so we have 2 already tomorrow.
I'm trying to think who it was. So I think Houston and the Clippers were one of them. I think that was one of them, and then I'm guessing the other one was probably in the East, but I'm not sure about that, honestly.
I actually think the Clippers and San Antonio in that first round, they won 7 games.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. That I hadn't thought of it though. Then again, the East was a what show last year.
The dumpster fire.
Yeah, it's not. It's greatly improved this season. It's still not to the level of the West, but it's getting way back. Even your 8th seed team like Detroit is a legitimate threat to advance in the playoffs at least one round this season. Whereas last year, who was the 8th seed last year? Was it Charlotte? Was it Boston?
It was Boston
because they played the Cavs in the first round, and that was not a team that was ready in any way, shape, or form to get into the playoffs. We've got a number of interesting matchups going forward as well into the second round. We mentioned that it's gotten underway with the Oklahoma City Thunder and the San Antonio Spurs matching up in the first game of the second round. But we've also got Golden State and Portland, which seemed like an unlikely and unfavorable matchup until Steph Curry went down with an ankle injury and then subsequently a knee injury, and until both CP3 and Blake Griffin also went down for the Clippers, as Brian just said. That totally changed. Those 2 events, the 2 Clippers players and Steph Curry going down for an undetermined amount of time, changed the complexion of the West. Suddenly, the big dog is San Antonio, and it's looking like it's going to be a dogfight in that 1-5 matchup between the Warriors and the Trailblazers.
Yeah, I mean, who knew, LaMarcus Aldridge was holding back the Trailblazers? Because, I mean, ever since he left, I mean, the team hadn't been past the first round when they had him on the team. And then this year they lose 4 starters. They have Damian Lillard as their leader now, and they're able to get past the Clippers. Lo and behold, that they don't have their best players, but they're in the second round, and they got a chance to go against the Warriors without a Steph Curry, and that does give them a little bit of a shot.
So we have another story, or another set of storylines in the second round of the playoffs, which should be starting tomorrow, I believe. And that's, you've got the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Atlanta Hawks with a rematch of last year's Eastern Conference Finals. Of course, the Hawks were swept in 4 in that series, where even though they didn't have Kevin Love after he was unceremoniously injured and knocked out of the entire playoffs by Kelly Olynyk, or however you pronounce his last name, from the Celtics. The guy looks like Hanson, except for he's 7 feet tall. Aside from
which
that,
Hanson?
The one with long hair, one of the older brothers, one of the ones no one cares about. Like, not the pretty one who was up front who was 13, but the one
that looks
older.
like a girl, the one that actually looks like a boy.
Brian, I'm going to defer to you on this one.
I don't know anything about Hanson brothers.
Yeah, I don't either.
I'm just saying, this mattered a lot to me when I was 10.
But the Hawks came in last season thinking they were hot, thinking they were all this, all that. They were going to destroy the Cavs. Here we go. We're going to match up with anybody in the West who we're going to bring out. And then they just got hammered by Cleveland. It wasn't even close. LeBron came alive. Kyrie had a great series, and they ended up burying the Hawks. I believe that was the series where I can't think of the guy's name, Schnell or Schroeder, the guy with the hair, the one with the hair who was guarding LeBron the whole time. Schroeder.
Is this the guy that we couldn't get the name right last time?
No, it's a different guy. He was traded.
Oh, Damari Carroll.
That's the one. I always said his hair looks like lobster tails. I maintain that.
You can't, everybody can't be the guy with the hair. 5 people have been the guy with the hair today.
Yeah, but that guy was the guy with the hair. Yeah, I mean, if you watch that guy's hair was the hair. There's no other way to look at it but that he's the guy with the hair. But DeMar Carroll, and he's absolutely right, tried to guard LeBron, failed, and then was subsequently traded out of Atlanta. So really a bad series for him and for the Hawks, and now they have to rematch the Cleveland Cavaliers. I'm honestly not sure it's not going to be the same thing this year because they struggled mightily with a terrible Boston team that was really, really, really hamstrung by bad injuries before and throughout the series.
Yeah, I mean, I would be surprised if it's not the same thing that we saw last year. I don't think Atlanta has anybody that can stop LeBron. Even if they do have somebody that can put on him to slow him down, he has options this season, this playoff run, like Kyrie, like Kevin Love, who are going to hit those open shots. So I mean, yeah, maybe they could win a home game, but I can't see them upsetting the Cavs.
Also, let's be honest, it's Atlanta sports. Even if LeBron blew his knee out tomorrow, we would still blow it because it's Atlanta sports. We make it to postseason and then everything crumbles around us. That's just how that happens.
They like to tease you and almost get to the promised land like the Falcons did a couple of years ago with Matt Ryan through that interception in the last play. I'm not going to lie and say I wasn't really happy when that happened because I was, but I do kind of feel bad for them. They're kind of becoming like the Cleveland of the South where their teams just can't make it through. Speaking of teams that are struggling to make it through, there's 4 teams left in the first round. That would be Miami and Charlotte, and Toronto and Indiana. Now,
I feel like Brian has a lot to say.
For both of these, I feel like Brian has a lot to say. We should all have a lot to say for both of these. So I'll briefly go first. So I'm rooting for Miami, obviously. They're my team. It's not my team. I don't have a team in the NBA, but if I did, it would probably be Miami. I love Dwayne Wade. I think he's one of the better players. More to play. What?
Suck it up over there, huh?
No. I really do like the Flash, man. I'm all about him. I've liked him. I liked him after he was one of the few players who's beat Kentucky that I actually liked from his Marquette days. Although I don't like the fact that he was coached by Tom Crean, but the creepiest. But Charlotte, on the other hand, is full, as I've said many times on this podcast, is full of players I can't stand. Frank Kaminsky, Tyler Zeller, or Cody Zeller, one of the Zellers, one of those clones.
I still haven't figured out which one it is.
7 guys from UConn are on that team. I can't deal with it. So they're not my favorite at all. And on the other side, on the flip side, we got Toronto and Indiana, where I thought Toronto was going to roll. Brian similarly thought that Toronto was going to get hammered by the underseeded, the 7th seed Indiana Pacers. And now it comes down to Game 7 to determine who advances and who stays home. So what do you got to say on all that, Brian?
I mean, I've been saying from the beginning that Toronto is trash. I mean, their top players, DeRozan and Lowry, have been horrible this series. They haven't been making open shots. They haven't been creating for their teammates. And now they find themselves in a Game 7 back at home for the 3rd straight season. The last 2 seasons, they couldn't get it done, and they lost at home. So I'm expecting the same thing to happen this season, too. And with Paul George on the Pacers, they got their superstar. He's showing up in these playoff games, but Toronto can't say the same thing. And then as far as the Miami and Charlotte series, it's been fun to watch. It has been fun. It's been competitive.
Yes.
I thought you jinxed my team for a little bit.
I was really concerned that I was.
You said something, and then we started losing, and then we couldn't win a game.
I couldn't shrink far enough away from you anytime I saw you between then and now. Just like, oh, God.
If we didn't win last night, I'm probably not here today.
I can't blame you. I usually stay off the Sports Center and stay away from the talking points for about 24 hours after Kentucky loses. Although that's only if they lose in a round that's advanced enough to where we can take time off between the next round. Like if they lose in the Final Four or even the end of the Elite Eight, that's fine because you can take a week off and there's no basketball in that week for the college basketball game. But if you lose like we did this year in the second round, you have to keep watching because there's 17 more games tomorrow, and they're all really good. So I prefer to lose in the later rounds if I got to get knocked out, but I can understand why you wouldn't want. Why you want to, go listen to some high school music in the dark if your team gets knocked out early.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things where Brad takes off work for a lot of the month of March.
All of them.
Because of the tournament.
All of them.
And so whenever Kentucky does lose, everyone assumes he's not there the next day because Kentucky lost, when really he just had already taken off that day for the tournament. But it's kind of become a well-known thing that you need your space.
Well, it's also interesting to watch the series because the guys who have been killing the Heat aren't the guys you would have predicted.
No, they've been. I hate to call them scrubs,
scrubs.
But I mean Kaminsky,
I'm going to go
Zeller.
ahead. I'm going to go ahead and confirm that it's Cody Zeller. I'm looking at it now. It's the big handsome himself.
Cody
Zeller.
Okay.
Yeah, you got him. You got Frank Kaminsky, Jeremy Lamb. Kid Gilchrist isn't playing, but you got Spencer Hawes, Courtney Lee, who killed you guys in Game 5, I think it was.
No, you got that backwards. He hasn't done anything out there, but he's had some big offensive rebounds, and he had that big three.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That 1-3.
But the rest of the time, he hasn't done anything out there. He's done nothing out there.
I feel like that's Charlotte. It's a team full of chuckers. They do nothing, and then at the last second, the one dude shooting a 3 from 70 feet out, and it goes in, and the game's over.
But that was the point that you made about Charlotte at the very beginning when we first were talking about what these teams might be, was you're like, they're a team of checkers, so they could go out there and they could hit nothing. But if they're all on, all at once, you're in trouble because they're just going to hit It's like Kentucky football.
Yep. The air raid offense on the hardwood. It's something else. It's been. I mean, you look at Courtney Lee's numbers, and they're deplorable. He's got 8.2, 2.8. 8.2 points, 2.8 rebounds, and a point and 1 assist per game.
I mean, granted, he's played some good defense on Wade, but offensively, he's not giving you anything.
He ain't doing anything. It's terrible.
And that's what makes it frustrating when he gets those offensive rebounds with 2 seconds left and chucks up a 3 and he makes it, and you're like, what the hell?
I feel like that's their coach's job, is just be like, all right, guys, here's the game plan. We're gonna be really disorganized for like 23 seconds, and in the last second, we're gonna make 3 passes. Someone's gonna be stuck in a terrible position, and you're gonna have to try and do like a hook shot over your head from 3, and it's gonna go in, and then we're gonna go to the next round. And everyone's like, that sounds great, let's do it. It's ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense at all that would be the way they try and go about things. But then again, they also. Was it their team? No, it was the Rockets who had the interim coach, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they got rid of
McHale.
Yeah, of a former Celtic and I guess now former Rockets coach Kevin McHale, and the interim guy who looks like Aziz Ansari, whose name I don't know is.
His name is JB Bickerstaff.
That's a great name, but
that's like a basketball coach name right there.
I have only known one person whose last name was Biggerstaff in my life, and I really thought that she was going to be the only person I ever knew named that.
Get used to disappointment. But honestly, the funny thing is, you wouldn't have thought this bottom half of the Eastern bracket was going to be where the interesting stuff was for the first round. You would have thought it would have been like the Clippers and Portland, which was a good series. But, or you would have thought maybe Dallas and OKC or even Cleveland and Detroit, but 2 of those series were basically sweeps with the other teams winning 1 game between them, and the Portland LAC series was dominated more by the talk about injuries than it ever was about the games themselves. Basically, that whole series was the Clippers should advance. Oh, the Clippers got hurt. Oh, well, they shouldn't advance. It had nothing to do with Damian Lillard. It had nothing to do with DeAndre Jordan's free throw shooting. It had nothing to do with basically the entire Clippers roster until 2 of them got hurt. So, we're looking forward to seeing who comes out of those remaining 2 matchups. Obviously, we're all rooting for Miami and Toronto.
All of us, yes.
All of us, all 3. Actually, you're probably rooting for Toronto, given that you're a Miami fan, right?
Rooting for Toronto to win?
Yeah.
No,
so that you
no.
can beat them.
Yeah, so you can step on them.
No, I'd rather them lose right now.
Still up the 7 seed?
No. I'd rather face Indiana.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say that. I can't, when Kentucky's in the tournament, I can't say that I'm unhappy when some 13 seed upsets who we're going to play. And we're like, okay, we have to play South Dakota State instead of Indiana. Hey, that's great.
Yeah,
so
I'll take it.
Another thing that happened this week, we had actually a story that's been kind of all over the place because it's so ridiculous and crazy, and yet it's true. And even more than that, it's basketball related, which hits all the bases. And that's the story of Jonathan Nicola, who claimed to be a 17-year-old playing in Canada, playing in Windsor for Windsor, Ontario's Catholic Central High School, and was arrested last week after police officers or Border Patrol officers discovered that he's 30 years old playing basketball in high school. He says that where he's from, his mom never gave him an age, that they didn't know that they would go from school to school, that you didn't do things like go to school every year. And so coming from somewhere like South Sudan, you can almost believe it, except for the fact that he's tried to apply for programs to play basketball in the U.S. 2 or 3 times, putting his ages at like 19, 17, 16 in other places.
I'll tell you the part of this I believe. I believe that he looked at it and said, I'm supposed to be a junior in high school.
I do believe that.
I believe that. He was like, okay, I'm supposed to be a junior in high school.
I believe that.
I'm going to sign up for high school.
I believe that if he had somebody else helping him put the paperwork through for the process. And I think that's probably the case.
But do I believe the part where he just had no idea his age? I believe he doesn't know what his actual age is. Do I believe that he thought that he was that much younger than he really is? No. Usually when you don't have any idea what your age is, it's more of like a 5-year gap type thing. Like, you have a roundabout idea just because of, passage of time.
And well, and they also make him smaller in Canada, so he looks like a giant among men when you look at any of the photos.
Well, like, if I actually thought that guy, because looking at his picture, if I actually thought that he was 17, he would look like a 17-year-old man-child. He looks 30.
He looks like Greg Oden in terms of age.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't look like a teenager at all. He looks like a grown man. So, I mean, to the naked eye...
So this is the question I have
with the first question we have to ask is, how did we let Greg Oden get away with it?
What?
He played for Ohio State, and then he went on to be a gigantic bust in the NBA. But he looked like he was 50 the whole time.
Okay.
He is the oldest looking 18-year-old
yeah, he was LeBron's
I've ever seen in my
dad.
life.
Well, I mean, and it's not like there are not, teenagers who look like grown men. There are. But
there are.
It was just one of those things. But, okay, so my question with this is can you not go into sports as an older person in college?
Here he is in high
Do you have
school.
to be straight out of high school?
This is him in high school. No, that's real. That's like a 17-year-old or a 16-year-old.
I mean, he looks like a 16-year-old to me. He just looks like he has a little big face.
Get a closer look. He looks like he's 40.
That's just his lumpy face.
And his full goatee and his... It is an interesting story. I mean, it's not turtles and pants or anything, but it's pretty good.
Okay, but what about my question? Like, I was serious. I really wanted to know if that could be a thing.
Doing what? Going from high school to...
No, like, okay, so you know how when you go to college you have non-traditional students?
Yeah.
Could you be a non-traditional basketball player?
Yes, if you hadn't been a professional athlete. I believe you can still get a scholarship and play.
So if, like, all of a sudden, like, if this guy had just been in community college and got his skills up and, like, someone noticed him, could that be a thing?
I think it's the case. I do think there are other strange rules, though. Especially coming from other countries. Like,
because I kind of wonder if maybe that was the whole goal.
Because, I mean, if he's over 21, why doesn't he just, like, go overseas and start playing ball somewhere?
Because he's from Sudan, and in Sudan it's
well, don't go there.
No, part of the reason they found out about this was because the reason Border Patrol had his name was because he had put in an application as a refugee.
He was also trying to send money back
Canada
home.
was probably not the only country he put in an application.
No, he put it in with the
refugee.
U.S. as well. He tried a couple times, and it was different ages too. At those different times,
because there's a lot of difficulty.
He might be trying to do what you were saying, but he might have needed to get clout. Like, that might be what it was, because he said he was trying to make money for his mom and family back home. It's an odd way to go about doing it, like being a college or a high school player in Canada is
Well, I mean, if you're a high school player that's just, kicking everybody's hind end and getting noticed.
Well, I mean, he can't be making any money playing high school basketball.
No, but like it is a way to make money because
I think
down the road,
honest, college sports are an apprenticeship to make a lot of money.
Yeah, I think he just didn't know.
He's probably trying to get a scholarship, get a free ride, and
eventually.
then
Yeah. I also,
Which is why I was like, why didn't he just skip a step? But of course, if he didn't have the education base that he needed to do that, that's another thing.
Right.
I agree. I think the interesting thing too is just that nobody noticed until now. Like, I don't know how he played almost an entire season with nobody having a clue.
Well, honestly, I kind of can because that's not something you really question. Like, people move all the time and they go and they sign their kids up for school. That's how you get kids signed up for school in school districts where they don't actually live at the place where they say they live. It's because you just fill out a piece of paper and that's your paperwork. Like, nobody's cross-referencing it with your birth certificate or something, unless you're, like, 5.
I mean, but he's got a pension plan and, like, a gray hair. Like, it should be pretty obvious that if you just to look at him, he looks like a 30-year-old.
We just went through how that's not true because of lumpy face.
I don't think lumpy face is a thing. I think you made up lumpy face. I think you have invented a new thing for the sake of this podcast.
I really feel bad for calling this poor guy lumpy face now. I'm like, this is really mean.
It kind of sounds like a basketball nickname, though, or like maybe like a boxing nickname, like Lunky Face or Lumpy Face Jones.
Lumpy face.
Lumpy Face Lloyd.
We have on the Miami Heat. We have a player, Tyler Johnson. We call him Bumpy Face.
Yep. See, okay, I don't feel so bad anymore.
Speaking of people I don't feel bad for,
Does he have bad acne?
He did.
I was like, is that what it was?
When he first came to the team, yeah, he did. So we called him Bumpy.
But speaking of people I don't feel bad for, I've got a new segment entitled The Hawks Hookup that I'm going to just tell you something about the Hawks that I think and feel every week. So get yourself ready for this one because this week's Hawks Hookup is that I'm gearing up and excited, and so is the team.
No, why the Hawks?
And so is the team for another year where the Cavs are going to sweep them out of the playoffs. This has been Hawks Hookup.
We gotta talk about this.
Rise up.
No.
Dump that segment.
Brad has been fired.
From my own podcast that I put on in my house.
Hey, it's my house too. I can fire you if I want to.
Yeah.
No, that's never happening again.
Why not? It was pretty good, I thought.
No.
It went over well.
No, that's never happening again.
No. The audience loved it. They will.
Brian and I are the only audience you're ever gonna get. No.
Hey, we have dozens of people who've listened to this over the course of the last month.
Please rise up and email him and tell him that was the worst bit that's ever happened.
At Stretch5Pod or Stretch5Podcast@gmail.com.
I'll be emailing.
Yeah, I'm gonna email too.
With suggestions for better segments.
And the two of us are gonna be the only ones who do.
Email us content. It's I also think with regards to I don't have anything else with other segments. Like, I mean, do you want to do a soccer minute? I have no idea. Did anything happen?
Okay, wait. Why do you think that our lovely little podcast, where we talk about how we feel about basketball, needs gimmicks?
Footy. I don't know. Why not?
Because we don't have gimmicks yet. You don't just like create gimmicks out of the thin air.
No, I wrote it down. It's right here. See, it's at the bottom. It's right there on my list.
That's even sadder. And then, like, we're not a local broadcast, so why are we having a local minute?
Because I want to. I don't like them, and I want to let everybody know about it. Speaking of gimmicks, there was something that's going on in the NBA right now that apparently is being called the NBA two-minute report. I don't know anything about it, but these two do, and they're going to explain it to me, so go ahead.
Yeah, so what the NBA officials do after each game, they go back and they review the last 2 minutes of the game, and any calls that were made on the court that they see were mistakes, they let us know. For example, in the other night, Wade had a play at the end of the game where he was going up for a layup, got hacked on the arm.
He got hammered.
It was a no call. It was a no call. 2-minute report came out. They went ahead and said that, yeah, he got hacked on the call. He should have been at the free throw line having shots.
The weird thing about the report, though, is like it's just an acknowledgement. That's all it is. It's not. There's not any sort of.
Is there punishments handed out after the fact?
No. It's
No.
just an acknowledgement.
There's not like fines or anything.
The officials, they don't get fined, they don't get suspended,
We
nothing.
effed up. That's
and
it.
Gabrielle Union, which is Dwayne Wade's wife, went on Twitter and she put the officials on blast. She's so mad.
I'm
And that's what she's saying. She's like, how can you expect this to mean anything when you don't even find them?
color me so
Fine.
shocked that an NBA player's wife went on social media and blew it up. I'm completely surprised.
Oh, it was already blew up before she
No,
even got
I-
into it.
She's actually very, very classy and a star in her own right.
Like the
She's a
screen,
very famous actress.
the screenshots were atrocious. If you look at those shots, I mean, Courtney Lee is straight up hacking Wade on the arm, and nothing was called. And that series alone has been horribly officiated.
I mean, and I feel like it is a valid point. Like, you're going to put out these reports and admit that you've done something wrong, but there's no action being taken. That's like me being like, I'm sorry I hit your car, but leaving you nothing to call me to set up insurance. Like, that doesn't help. That's not helpful.
He figured he can be the only one. There can only be one chucker in this series, and it wasn't going to be Dwayne Wade. It was going to be him. So he needed to prevent that from happening no matter what. And then the rest just didn't see it. I mean, that's like I saw that Courtney Lee. I saw that play, and Wade ran into a brick wall. Like, and it wasn't one of those situations where the guy shoots the ball and the defender's jumping straight up. No, it was a situation where Wade goes into the guy, then the guy comes over and hits him in the face, and I think another guy came over too and like smacked him as well. I think it was a 2-person foul, and Wade ends up on the floor and he's like prone, like he just got killed. And he gets up and looks at the refs like, "Are you kidding me?" In fact, I think that was where Wade got up and got right in their face too. Like, he was real hot about that.
Yeah, because you had Cody Zeller. That's who we established who it was. Cody Zeller. Okay, yeah. You had him who he went straight up, and there wasn't a foul on him. It was Courtney Lee that smacked him across the arm, and there was no call. And so, of course, Wade was mad, as he should be, because they missed the call. And so when they put this report out, it's like, thanks, but you're a little late. Like,
nobody's being
like
helped
that doesn't
by
help
this.
anybody.
I guess the only way you can really look at it as helpful is if you take it and compile which referees are screwing what up. And then on the back end, you can say, well, I never want this ref calling a game again. I never want that. Although I don't understand why you would do that when all you're going to do then is have teams saying, well, we're going into this game and we know that they're going to have this, and this ref, and we know we're not going to get a fair shake of things, so why are we even bothering? You're going to get a bunch of that kind of stuff going on. So I don't see where it benefits the NBA, really.
Well, and then you have to look at, you have a report coming out that there's going to be bad officiating no matter what you do. Like, mistakes are going to be made. Like, it's just going to happen. It happens in all sports. But this is the only sport I know of that does a report like this. Usually if you have bad officiating, it's just the announcer sitting around going, yeah, that was bad, but maybe they saw something we didn't see, da-da-da, and then we move on. But no other sport that I know of goes back and acknowledges that a mistake was made. It still does nothing about it.
The NFL does, but it's rare.
Yeah, no, it's not like just a report that comes out.
And they fine when they do as well.
Yeah. No, so they do something about it.
Although, with the NFL, it's probably worse because, like, it's only 16 games. If that costs you a game... in the playoffs in the NBA, yeah. Now, them doing it during the playoffs is a whole other shtick we could talk about, where it's like, why are you issuing this in the playoffs where your entire season could be completely derailed by one poor officiating call? That seems It doesn't make sense from a business standpoint. It doesn't really... I guess it's from our transparency would be my guess, because I haven't read anything about it. Usually with Silver, I agree with what he does. He's a great commissioner. I like his stance on marijuana. I like his stance on gambling. But in this specific instance, I think he's wrong.
Well, I mean, I think the 2-minute report does help them, but it should only be internal. Like, let the guys know what they did wrong and move on from there. And then you can use that report to select the ref that you want to referee these high intense, high playoff games, final games.
If we knew that they were going to be using that information to help teams sort of take a pool of referees and take out certain ones, like kind of like jury selection is, where you can strike guys out.
You can't have something like that, though. That leads to issues where you have the hand picking of favoritism with referees. Like,
I wonder if that would be...
This ref treats us real nice. We're going to have him on every game.
That's the only way, though, I can see there being a reason to do it. Like, aside from just straight transparency and some conceptual ideal of, like, oh, everything should be transparent.
And I think they do use those reports to pick the referees that they're going to use when the finals do start. So it comes in handy internally, but don't let us know something that we already know.
I gotta wonder if the Atlanta-Boston referees are really dreading that report at the end of that series, because, my God, there were 8 or 9 technicals and flagrants and whatever else. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they congregate it, though, or aggregate it and look at it for the next round, though.
That wasn't even the worst series, man. This Hornets Heat series, the officiating has been...
Got a wounded dog over there in the corner with a microphone and a Miami Heat hat on.
It's all coming out.
It says Fins on the back. Moving on a little bit, we talked about the NFL draft and why we don't care about it, or rather we're going to talk about it because it's been dominating the airwaves for the last week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. We live in Atlanta, which is the land of football. It's one of these states and cities where you just can't get away from the pigskin, no matter what time of year it is. I can't. It's one of the reasons I'm not as big a football fan as I could be, even though I played football for a long time. I like playing the sport. I enjoy watching it to an extent, but the commentary 365 makes me insane. Now, true, it could be said that we're doing a podcast about basketball every week. That could be a thing. You could definitely use that against us and say, well, aren't you covering basketball all the time? Well, yeah, because someone has to. Otherwise, it's just going to be, will the Patriots quarterback come back in time, or will the Broncos herp-a-derp, or what about the Ravens? Week 1 coming up in 23 weeks. Like, that's the way it feels like this time of year, even though we're basically as far away from football season on both sides as you could be. It just doesn't stop. We had the draft come and go. There was an actually interesting controversy with one of the guys who was supposed to be one of the first picks, ended up going to the Dolphins, who did a great job of picking up a guy who had his draft fall after a series of unfortunate things that were released on a social media account. But beyond that, it's 3 weeks of stuffy dudes in suits sitting behind a microphone talking about, well, if they take the strong safety as a first pick, you really got to think about 13th pick, and if you want to trade up and do this. And my thought on this stuff is always, and it's the same with the NBA draft, it's like, well, this isn't even sports. Like, we're not even talking about sports. We're talking about sports. We're talking about, like, I'm not a big fantasy guy, and it's for the same reason. I want to talk about the sports. I don't want to talk about, like, setting up something to set up something to maybe someday have a roster to play a game.
Yeah, I mean, it's all opinion based. These guys giving their opinion on what they've seen out there. You're not going to know what these guys do out on the field until they actually get out there, put the pads on, and do something. The draft. I mean, they've been talking about for a week now, and it's draining. But I mean, from a Dolphins perspective, it was kind of fun to see this guy get drafted. He posted a video on Twitter of him hitting a bong out of a gas mask. That was
very
pretty,
Miami.
Yeah, very. Yeah. He fits in perfect. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny too, because I think that's the level of coverage it needs. It just needs the highlights. Just this happened, this happened, this happened. These guys did what we thought. These guys did what we thought. This happened different. This guy went somewhere we didn't expect. That's all I need. I need like a day on each side, and then maybe I'd even watch it. If it was just a day of coverage beforehand and a day of coverage after, maybe I'd actually tune into the damn thing. But as it stands now, I don't need Mel Kiper breaking down every single pick. I don't need Atlanta radio for 3 weeks. I kid you not. They went through each pick, and they would call the person who was the local guy for the paper covering whatever the team was. Now we have the guy who's covering whatever the name of the newspaper is in Buffalo, New York. Reporter guy from Buffalo. What do you think about the third pick the Buffaloes have? It's in the 5th round, and it's pick number 78. And I'm just sitting there with my brains bleeding. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Why are we talking about this nonsense right now? It makes me insane, because we're in the middle of the NBA playoffs. There's actual baseball on. There's sports sports going on. The Olympics are coming up. There's all kinds of things that are happening. And instead, here we find ourselves entrenched in this garbage radio about nothing.
Some of these NFL fans, they're like crack fiends, you know. When the season ends, they're searching.
The sound of
they're searching for that next fix, you know, whether it be the draft or the combine, anything to get to their fix of football, you know. And so I don't know how they got so many rounds in this NFL draft. It's like 6 or 7.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's why, you know, you have these fanatics that are going to keep it around. Like, for example, my brother, he would watch the entire draft, like all rounds. He would watch the whole thing.
Well, there's an NFL fantasy football podcast that goes on as well, and it's year-round. Let me reiterate that. There's an NFL fantasy football podcast that goes on year-round, and it's sponsored by ESPN. ESPN, sponsor us. We talk about real sports. This isn't fantasy. This is something that's actually happening. And then stories about guys with turtles in their pants and, you know, people who are 30 who are playing in high school. But other than that, it's real basketball. Like, I can't even get my mind around how goofy it is to have, you know, this kind of coverage for something that happens on the other side of the year. Like, can't we give it a rest?
It's become a year-round sport, at least in America. Intentionally
too, because that stuff's planted.
That's what they want.
Look at Deflategate last year. It was like a holiday for the NFL, where every time something would happen that didn't involve the NFL,
it's back in the news circle right now.
Yep.
You know, he just got suspended. Like, they upheld his suspension, and so he's gonna take him back to court. It's back in the news, and nobody wants to talk about it, but they are talking about it.
It's the reverse of the way they do sanctions in the NCAA, especially for basketball. Teams will release statements or accept or decline, or the NCAA will release really nefarious decisions or ideas, or when they blame somebody for doing something against the rules, infractions, on a Friday. They always release it on a Friday in the afternoon, because the news cycle doesn't start over until Monday after that. So if you don't catch it and grab onto it right away, like 5 seconds after it comes out, nobody's going to actually even report on it, really. They're going to be like, well, this crazy thing happened over here. But nobody's reading that, because they'll come back into the office on Monday and report on it then. It's the opposite here with the NFL, where they wait for the moment when everything is quiet, or when not quiet, when everything else is happening, when things are ramping up for the rest of the world. Like,
when they're in the backdrop.
About us, you know, Tom Brady might have had somebody else maybe deflate a football. Why aren't we talking about that 2 years later? Hey guys, hey everybody, we want attention. It's a draft, like, you know, spring camp, spring training. You know, it makes me crazy whenever we talk about it, because, like, the other thing is, if you talk to a basketball fan, about 2 or 3 weeks before the season starts, maybe a month, you start getting real hype. Like, 2 months before, I'm kind of like, it's coming, but I'm like, it's been a long season. Like, I'm ready for it, but I'm not, like, dying yet. Now, maybe part of that is because there's football season before basketball season, so to me, it's like a warm-up, you know, to the real thing. Yeah, you got this football and whatever, they're, you know, it's dudes rolling on each other and someone's throwing a ball or something. That's fun. But you got the real sport coming up in November and October, so I'm ready for that. But with football, it's like as soon as the season's over in March, people are like, oh boy, I can't wait for next season.
Yeah. They like I said, crack fiends, man. They just want the next fix.
Worse. It's a crack fiend with a jersey. Mm-hmm. That's the name of this episode, Crack Fiend with a jersey.
Crack fiend in a Brady jersey.
I mean, if it was in Portland, would it be Crack City?
Crack City. Marie, take -10 from him.
Well, there's a third person in here. I forgot. Where'd you come from?
Hi.
She came to take points away from you for that bad joke.
No, my precious points that don't mean anything. Also, does anybody have worse hair in all sports than Mel Kiper? Can we think of somebody who has worse hair?
Wait, what is it with you and people's hair?
Well, it's either awful or it's not. In Mel Kiper's case, it's awful.
Quinn Snyder.
Quinn Snyder.
Oh, a challenger appears. Wait a minute. I'm looking this up now.
A wild Quinn Snyder appears.
Yes.
He looks like a mad scientist. That's what he looks like.
Some hair, boy. No, I kind of like his hair, though. I mean, it depends on what photo you get of him. That's a pretty good one right there. He's got... It's like a flock of seagulls.
Oh, wait, no. You know what he looks like?
What?
In that picture, he totally looks like the young version of the mad scientist. Like, right when he goes crazy. Like, he
Yeah.
used to be
The
a
flashback.
businessman.
The
and
flashback.
He used to be okay. And then his hair did this, and now he's going to go kill Batman.
He looks like the flashback version of the mad scientist as he goes crazy.
Yup, he reached his breaking point.
Yeah, like, that's it. That's all life has given him is that one look really cute right there.
Mel Kiper looks like a white version of a black guy from the 70s, though, like who's in a band. Like, look at that hair.
It's not his hair. It's his forehead is unfortunate.
It's shaped like Pac-Man, and
Wait, here, give me the picture.
waka waka
Give me
waka. His hair is
I stand. It's not the hair. It's the forehead.
What are we saying he looks like?
like Pac-Man. Like his hair
Like
looks like
Pac-Man?
Pac-Man. If you turn it on the side, you got Pac-Man
Let me see again.
It does not look like Pac-Man.
on its side.
You're just incorrect.
That or his forehead
Nah.
spells M for Mel.
No, you know what he looks like?
His forehead spells M for Mel.
I got it. He looks like a Dracula hairstyle. Is what this looks like. Who uses just for men.
If Dracula was a Republican, running for president.
If Dracula used just for men.
he looks like he's on a campaign poster right there.
I was thinking more like his nose reminds me like a witch. You know? So like if Dracula and the
Mel Kiper.
Mel Kiper looks like a conglomeration of 5 different horror picture people. Like, you got the forehead of Frankenstein, the hair of Dracula,
We got woodchuck teeth.
woodchuck teeth, and the nose of a witch.
like he looks like he should be in The Hobbit.
He's also the world's most nasally person when he's on ESPN. His
He
voice.
does kind of look like Bilbo Baggins' hair.
Yeah.
Except for just for men.
In a suit.
Like, I really hanging on to that just for men because that's totally a dye job. Just saying.
So, I'm not a fan of the draft. To sum this all up, it's not my favorite thing.
Move on to hair. I was like, okay, we're talking about hair now.
We don't like you, Mel Kiper.
Yeah.
We don't like your
Coming
big
for you
board.
with our podcast in the
I
night.
feel ambivalently towards you, Mel Kiper, but I'm sorry that your hair looks like that.
I think your forehead spells out M for Mel. It does spell out M for Mel. He monogrammed his hair.
We're giving Mel too much airtime.
I don't know why we're so obsessed with people's hair.
Well, it is the NBA or the NFL draft, so we got to.
I guess we have to acknowledge him.
Yeah, we have to do our due diligence. This is our NFL draft talk.
But
For all you
that
NFL
has-
fans
that has
out there,
nothing to do
this
with,
is for you.
The amount of hair talk we have. And it's not me. You can't blame this on me.
First pick in the NFL terrible hair draft, Mel. Maybe it's just
Oh my
him.
goodness, could we actually do a terrible hair draft for the NBA
Sure.
draft?
Oh yeah, we could.
Because it's going to be epic.
You could probably do 3 of them for the NBA draft. It's pretty strong every year. They bring their game. I mean, you could also do a terrible suit draft for them because they usually have a pretty awful repertoire
I
of
don't
clothing.
think that their suits are terrible. I think they're awesome.
Well, I mean, awesome and terrible are 2 sides of the same coin.
Depends on who you ask.
Many times. Yeah. Okay, guys, we got a couple games coming up tomorrow. Tonight we have, obviously, the OKC and San Antonio game going on as we are recording this. Brian, do you have an update on that game? Is it a straight butt whooping still, or are we closing things? Is OKC closing in? Because
Trying to get that update for you. It is, wow. Yeah, they're still blowing them out. It's third quarter that just started, 73-43. Up by 30.
I mean,
that hurts.
speaking of guys with crazy hair, that's Billy Donovan's having a rough time of it. I mean, they beat
Yeah, his team's not
Dallas.
doing good right now.
They beat Dallas, but Dallas stole a game from him. What?
You're obsessed with hair.
He kind of looks like Eddie Munster.
Actually, I was kind of thinking that about Mel.
Yeah, they're like cousins from. They're twin cousins who were just lost forever.
Billy Donovan and Mel's hair are cousins.
Yeah. If you swapped hair on them, would you notice? I mean, you would, but not by a
That
lot.
should be an Instagram thing. They should do hair swap.
Hair swap.
Instead
Hashtag
of
hair
the
swap.
Yeah, instead of the face swap.
Hair tag.
Okay, we gotta quit talking about hair. Quit bringing up hair.
But going forward, we got a couple series. Obviously, Golden State and Portland starts. Atlanta and Cleveland start. And then we've got the wrap-up of Miami and Charlotte and Toronto and Indiana. Putting aside those first round matchups, because obviously you've got a vested interest in both of them, Brian, what do you think is your most interesting second round matchup of the 3 that we have confirmed right now?
It's hard to say. I mean, I feel like Cleveland is going to take care of Atlanta. I don't see too much trouble there.
I'm thinking 5 games at most.
Yeah, I can see them maybe winning a game at home, but no more than that.
Well, although Atlanta, similarly to Charlotte, is a team of chuckers as well. They're slightly better chuckers, but they're chuckers nonetheless.
They can knock down shots when they're on, so we'll see what happens. This OKC and San Antonio is a little surprising. I didn't expect this kind of score in the first game. It looks like Durant and Westbrook aren't having too good of shooting games right now.
I really thought it was going to be a great series between the two teams. I thought San Antonio was going to win it in like 6, but I thought it was going to be.
And it still has the potential to be that way. It could just be, first game trying to feel each other out.
That's true. And to be fair, we did the same thing with the first round. We're like, oh my God, the NBA is over. You know, the San Antonio and Golden State are destroying their teams. Well, and they ended up winning by almost sweeps. But we said, the Clippers are beating the tar out of Portland and. And
to go out kind of on a limb, to me right now the most surprising series that I'm looking forward to is actually Golden State and Portland. Without Steph Curry, I mean, anything can happen.
If Damian Lillard can get it going, Rip City might roll. They're not going to sweep or anything, obviously, but I think it's going to be a pretty darn decent series. Yeah. I think it's going to be a series where, because of the other team. Not because you're talking about Portland, but because you're talking about Golden State, their opposition, and because that's the team that's got the title and the team that won 73 games and the team that's missing Steph Curry right now. I think because that's
that's what makes it intriguing. They're missing their best player.
That's going to bring a lot of attention. Is what I get into. A lot of attention to Portland, as a team that really hasn't had a lot of attention up till now. It's been a season where you knew Damian Lillard was doing work, but other than him, you're kind of like, well, who else is on this team? And even when you look at him, I'm still not really.
Right.
Can you name 3 other guys on their roster? Can you give me 3 that aren't Damian Lillard?
Me? Yeah, of course.
I bet you could.
Of course, yeah. You got Al Farouk Aminu.
All right.
You got C.J. McCollum.
All
and you got your boy Mason Plumlee.
Dang, well done. I knew about Plumlee. I did. And I knew Lillard, but that was about it. They got a bunch of guys who, again, this is a team of scrubs. It's also, it looks like the roster's too big. They got 15 dudes on their roster.
And that's the max that you can have on a roster, 15. And so, and we don't even know if Steph Curry's going to be available in this series.
He might be out the whole time. This might be another one where the most overrated chucker of them all, in his partner in crime, Klay Thompson, has to actually be consistent and
the
carry
ultimate
a team.
chucker. Yeah,
he is the ultimate chucker who gets so much credit. I mean, he's a chucker with a slightly better shooting percentage than most chuckers. And
it'll be interesting to see if he's also forced to guard Damian Lillard on the other side.
Oh, he can't guard Damian Lillard. There's no way. He's taller than him, but I mean,
who are they going to put? I guess they got Sean Livingston as that's who they're starting in front of Curry. So I guess he has that task of guarding Lillard, but he can't stay with Lillard.
That worked against Houston, but
that was Patrick Beverly that they were facing.
Yeah,
this is Damian Lillard.
Their second and third string point guard for the 8 seed. A team that barely snuck in on the last day of the playoffs, eliminating Utah. This is not that team. This is a team that's really done some stuff well, and is kind of a Boston-like team that they don't have a lot of stars. They've got Lillard. I mean, obviously he outclasses anybody that the Celtics have this season, but you've got. I mean, is your second most recognizable guy on that team Mason Plumlee?
I mean, after Lillard, I would say McCollum, just because he won Most Improved Player this year. He's starting to make a name for himself, so I would say McCollum after Lillard, and then probably Plumlee.
You've also got a guy, I'm just looking at the roster, who looks like he belongs in the MMA more than he does in the NBA. That's Chris Kaman. I mean, he looks scary. He looks like a Viking lumberjack who shaved his head bald and got in the octagon.
I'm surprised he's still playing. I didn't know he was on the team.
This is one of these teams where you look at like half the roster, you're like, wait, that guy's, what's he doing? Why is he in the NBA still?
That's why it's so surprising where they're at right now.
I thought he was in China,
Yeah.
Or Israel or wherever, Spain.
Chris Kamen the Caveman.
From the Cayman Islands. Not really. All right. Well, I think that's about it for now. We've covered last week's news stories. We've covered the first round, most of it, all of it. We've covered the second round that's starting, what we're looking forward to. We got a bunch of games coming up on the slate again this week since it's just the thick of the NBA playoffs. It's going to be, hopefully there's not going to be too much of a lull at the beginning of the second round as there was the first, but honestly, what I'm actually excited about this round. The first round, I was up for it, but I wasn't super excited. But looking forward to the matchups to this one, except apparently for the Spurs and Thunder, which seems to be headed for blowout city. So hopefully not. But you guys can contact us at Stretch5Pod on Twitter or at stretch5podcast@gmail.com. Send us your hate, send us your love. 5-star rate us on iTunes. If you do, we will read your name on air. Obviously, we haven't had any of those just yet, so be the first. Pioneer. Trailblaze. Be like Damian Lillard. Trailblaze.
There you go.
There you go.
Minus 20.
I'm losing points by the minute.
I thought that was okay.
No.
No?
No? You're going to lose points, too, if you don't watch it.
All right, yeah.
All right, guys. We'll talk to you next week. Tune in, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.
Bye.